Participate.
The screen must be located just slightly different than normal because I can't, which is good, I can't see too much of you. Can't see your tie. Don't encourage him, anyone.
Man. 8:30, I'm putting a motion of adjournment on the floor.
No, I don't want to play now. Sorry.
What's that?
My computer's talking to me and I don't like what it's saying. Steven, where are you?
Yeah, I know.
Notice I took my time to get out of the room.
I watch it and
Trying
think,
to
oh,
get
here we go.
something
Now I'm
I
going to have to watch all
Oh,
this.
thank you. After looking at all those pictures.
Fabulous.
I know.
I looked at when season 2
These are the cupcake holders we talked
Yeah.
about.
They make a noise when you said
He got me on. You gotta watch it, yeah.
oh, I didn't even know.
Yeah, but it's in Spanish. All the comments are subtitles, so you'll get
So do I have another
Just like
option?
regular cup, I couldn't, there are cupcake holders you can buy, but I didn't want to spend $1.50.
Okay, I see.
We're not going with them, but we're going to see.
I like when they negotiate too. So
Hello, how are you?
the two kingpins are sitting there by the pool. This is a copy of the
Board
LC.
docs.
If we were undecided.
Yeah. Going after nothing. I was watching the show.
How about
Okay, notes. And board docs should be on here, right?
This is my minute to send that to McDonald.
Okay, helpful.
Yeah?
See?
What?
You're
Yeah? Oh, cool.
Okay, we get the phones on. They're on. Okay.
I bet Pam.
I've been in there.
Trustee Swan, we still have you on the phone line?
Correct.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
No.
45, 50, 60 bucks.
Really have to get condensed today. Somebody said,
Wonder what else gets said
that's why the motion is 30. Get out of here. It's supposed to rain on the way home.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll begin our regular meeting December the 9th, 2015. Call to order. And I will ask us to rise for the singing of O Canada.
True
So before I ask the director to do roll call, I want to welcome Hillary and Betty, who are here. Lisa's not feeling well, so Lisa, if you're watching, we hope you are resting and on the mend. And yes, it takes two to do your job. Just thought I'd say that. I'll ask the director to do a roll call.
Our roll call for our meeting of 9 December 2015. Trustee Armour.
Present.
First Vice Chair Carpenter.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Garl.
Present.
Trustee Bill McPherson. Trustee Wendy McPherson. Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards.
Present.
Trustee Swan.
Present.
Student Trustee Alec McIsaac.
Present.
Thank you, Director. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve consent agenda items 3.02 to 3.03, December 9th, 2015, as submitted. Moved by Trustee Garrell, seconded by Trustee Richards. And just cast your votes, please. Okay.
No pressure, nobody's watching.
No. And we'll, that's okay. We'll just do a show of hands. And those in favor? Thank you very much.
In favor.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing there are none, we're going to be moving into private session, so I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board move into private session, Committee of the Whole, December the 9th, 2015, moved by Trustee McAllister, seconded by Trustee Cram. Those in favor? Opposed? Carries. We're moving into private session. Favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And then speaking on behalf of my vice chairs, I want to thank again all of you for the confidence that you have in us. And thank you, Director. Okay, moving forward, a report from the private session. November 25th, there was one financial, one contractual item were discussed, and one recommendation was brought to the board. And I need a mover that the Upper Canada District School Board adopt the 2014-2015 Detailed Audit Committee Annual Report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2015. Moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee McAllister. I'll ask you to cast your votes. Right. Trustee Armour. Thank you. That carries. Thank you. A report from the private session, December the 9th, 2015. There are 3 contractual matters were discussed. 2 recommendations were brought forward to the board. The first motion is that the Upper Canada District School Board ratify the tentative collective agreement between the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation District 26, professional support staff personnel, bargaining unit, and the Upper Canada District School Board. Moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Garrow. And I'll ask you to cast your votes.
We've got to add that.
Pardon?
We've got to add that agenda item.
We'll do it by,
Can do it by show of hands.
Oh, okay, show of hands. Thank you. Trustee Swan?
In favor.
Thank you very much. That carries. The second motion, the Upper Canada District School Board ratify the tentative collective agreement between the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario Occasional Teachers Bargaining Unit and the Upper Canada District School Board. Moved by Trustee Kartner, seconded by Trustee McDonald. And again, show of hands. Trustee Swan?
In favor.
Thank you very much. That carries. Moving on to item 7.01 is a summarized audit committee annual report to the board, which we postponed from November 25th, and I'm going to turn this over to the chair of the audit committee, David McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be very brief. The information is before you. This is just the summary of the information that the audit committee has performed over the course of the last year. The important facts are to know that we are compliant with the ministry regulations for reporting. The information shows that we conducted some audits during the course of the year that were not completed by August 31st, most notably the absence and occasional teachers audit. That will be, the final report would be coming forward within this school year, this fiscal year, and that completion will be part of the next year's annual report. In addition, we've also completed audits in the 2014-15 school year, fiscal year, sorry, on facility operations management audit. These audits are performed on behalf of the Regional Internal Audit Team. And based on multi-year internal audit plan, we are not expecting any more enrollment audits to be performed in the coming year. That is the information that I have to share with the board at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald. Any comments or questions? Seeing there are none, I have a motion before me that the Upper Canada District School Board adopt the 2014-2015 Audit Committee Annual Report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2015. I need a mover. Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee McAllister. And our votes up for this one? Okay, cast your votes, and it appears. And that carries. Thank you. Moving on to the next item. This is always exciting for us. We have a new Cornwall school. We have a name proposal. And I'm going to ask Trustee David McDonald if he will introduce to us the principal, Kelty Grant.
If I could have Ms. Grant come forward and certainly start the presentation. Ms. Grant is the principal at East Front Public School currently, and will be the principal of the school, the new amalgamated or consolidated school, and has done the work leading the school naming and the community engagement piece around the new school.
Good evening. We have some really excited students and parents and staff waiting at home tonight for a decision on the name. They've been asking all day, can you post it tonight? Can you? So they'll be anxiously waiting. Thank you very much for having me here. So we're talking tonight about the amalgamation of the two schools, East Front and Gladstone, and the name of the new school that's being built. So East Front and Gladstone were studied in an accommodation review which began back in 2009. Both of these older schools are really full, and they're also the last two single-track schools in Cornwall. So East Front is only French immersion, and Gladstone only offers regular programming. So the final decision of the accommodation review was to amalgamate the two schools into a brand new state-of-the-art elementary school which would offer dual-track programming. The naming committee meetings, there were several of them. They started in April of last year. So they were comprised of the parent councils of both schools, Trustee McDonald and Mr. Mills, Superintendent Mills, the principals of the two schools. We had two community members on the committee. There was Jim Brownell and Sarah Lozo, who are local historians. And they met the first time before I was on board, and then the second meeting was in September of this year. So when we got together this time, we went over the naming policy and we generated an initial list of names. In October of this year, the meeting was advertised in the local newspaper, social media, and on the radio. So Trustee McDonald and I were radio stars for an evening or for a day. And it was open to the public for consultation and input. So I actually ended up receiving quite a lot of interest from the Cornwall community, just through email and through social media. A lot of names were generated and brought forward, and there were quite a few that were hand-delivered as well. It was really interesting. I learned a lot about local history, and it was really interesting to see the interest of the community and the school and the students, and what name might come forward in the end. So it was fun. It was really neat. So in November, we had a fourth naming committee meeting because by this point we had over 20 names. So we got together for the fourth time and just went through every single name and the meaning behind each one, and then gave everybody a chance to talk with one amongst themselves and to really think about it. And then they voted on their top three names. And the top three names that came out, actually, I'll just leave that for the next slide. It'll be suspense.
Suspense.
But then we did think that it was important. We had decided as a committee, and we had discussed also that it would be really important to hear student voice. So the final step in the process was to take the top three names to the students and give them an opportunity to say what they thought. So the results, at the final meeting of the last month, all the names that were submitted were reviewed, and I think I'm losing my spot. The naming committee members had a chance to ask any questions, to say what they wanted, and the top three choices of the naming committee in the evening of the last meeting was a tie for Bridgewood and Bridgewater Public, and Sir John Johnson was second. So Chad Brownlee, the principal at Gladstone, and I took the top three names back to our schools and had assemblies where we explained the top three names to the students. And it's hard because you have your own preferences, but we were really careful to stay neutral and explain the names of the three to the students and why. And then the students went back to their classes and they had an opportunity to vote. And it was quite exciting when the votes were coming in from each class. Chad and I were texting one another all day saying, "What are you at now?" We were trying to guess what the final results would be. It was really neat. And the really most positive thing, I think, for us was that it was unanimous. The naming committee and the students both had the same first choice. So the first choice for everybody was Bridgewood Public School. So as considering the unanimous votes of both the naming committee and the student body of East Front and Gladstone Public Schools, we would like to bring forward the name of Bridgewood Public. So Bridge is symbolic of the joining of the two school communities. The Seaway International Bridge is an iconic symbol in Cornwall, and it joins Cornwall to Akwesasne and also to the United States, and has become a prominent part of the Cornwall culture and scenery, especially in the past years. The old bridge has been torn down and the new bridge has been built, which really ties in nicely with what's going on with our school communities. It suggests strength and stability, as well as bridging of the past and the future in education. And wood is a tribute to the new school's location on a wooded lot in the Linwood Forest area. So I just thought I would just end with just some photos of some transition activities that we've been doing with the students. They're getting excited. They're doing pen pal activities with like pen pals back and forth, and we've gotten the grade 2s together already. The day that the grade 2s went over to visit with their friends at Gladstone, the grade 4s were Skyping one another. So I arrived at Gladstone in time to wave hi to the East Front students on the on the computer, and it's been positive. The students are very excited. As much as like yesterday, they were opening cards that they had gotten from their friends in Gladstone, and they were making little Christmas ornaments to send back. So that was really it for me.
Well, thank you. Comments or questions? Trustee McDonald.
I just want to start out by certainly saying that, how proud I am of the work that Ms. Grant has done, and I will keep it formal with Ms. Grant, not Kelty. You know, coming into a school environment after you've already had some initial meetings in place and some of these engagement committees being formed, and taking the ball that was the torch that was left with Mr. Hardy, it can be a difficult process, and Ms. Grant's done a great job to make sure that everybody involved within the committee, and in fact members of the general public, had an opportunity to be involved. The work that Ms. Grant and Mr. Brownlee have done to bridge those two schools so far has been tremendous. You listen to some of the things that she's got going on a daily basis. If you follow the Facebook or the Twitter feeds of both schools, you see all of the activities that are going on in the school, but you certainly see the activities that are going on to make sure that these two school communities are starting to blend. It's an important piece. This new school will be about 575, 580 kids, and two schools coming together is a very difficult task to do, but the foundation has been laid and the work that's being done is tremendous, and so I'm very proud of the work that Ms. Grant's done, and happy to support the name that's been provided to us. I did not vote on the names. I provided a name, and this was not my name, but I didn't put my name in. That's what I wanted. But I think, you know, the information that came forward, you were able to see how the bridge was prevalent. There was bridge wood, there was bridge water, there was a couple of different variations of bridge, and I think that really spoke to what's happening within the community. We are bridging two school communities. In the past, we've consolidated schools in Cornwall. We've closed Vincent Massey and moved those kids to Viscount and put an addition on. We closed Memorial Park and moved those kids to Central Public and built a new school. This is a new identity for Cornwall, and it's an important piece that we recognize within the community, and we're going to embrace the history of both schools. I have no doubt in my mind that Ms. Grant and Mr. Brownlee will ensure that happens coming forward, but it's an opportunity for our kids to have something new and something beautiful within our community, and I'd be happy to move the motion to officially name the new elementary school in Cornwall, Bridgewood Public.
So come back to that if there's any more comments or questions. Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Hi, Kelty.
Hi.
Kelty was a teacher within Akwesasne Mohawk Board of Education previously, and I like the reference. I really like the reference to the bridge, you know, to the communities of Akwesasne as well as Cornwall. At times I've spoken that bridge has been a barrier to us, you know, and it should be a bridge to both communities, and I really like that reference. So
Thank you.
when it comes to second that motion.
Any other comments or questions before we get? I mean, these guys already have it passed. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Swan, do you want to say anything?
I'd just like to make a comment, Chair.
Go ahead.
I just think you all did a fabulous job in the renaming process, in the meetings, and I think this is going to pay off down the road as well, because these students will be proud that they also were part of naming the school that they attended, and I really thank you for bringing the students into the decision-making process too.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, I have a motion that is moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Garrow, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve Bridgewater Public School as the name for the new... Bridgewater.
Bridgewood.
Okay.
Here, you want me to-
Well, if you read it, that's what you'll see.
It says wood, no.
All right, I'm gonna go back again. I have a motion moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Garrow, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve Bridgewood Public School as the name for the new Cornwall School. And I'll ask you to cast your votes. And that carries, and my apology to all the people that are watching.
Yeah, it says wood.
No, it doesn't. Kelly, on behalf of the board, we're all very proud of the work that you've done, and you and Chad Brownlee. I think engaging the stakeholders in this is critical, but engaging, as Trustee Swan said, probably our most important stakeholders, our children. You've given them a sense of ownership of a school, and I can just see by the excitement in your voice that if that's even close to the excitement with the kids, it's going to be an amazing place. So thank you so much for that. The other person I want to thank really is Trustee McDonald. I know the work that you've done for your community, and I know the hard work that you've put into getting this school and getting it built. And on behalf of the board, thank you so much for what you've done there as well. And that's coming.
Okay.
And Superintendent Mills, we appreciate everything that you're doing in your role as well. I know that being down that day when we put the shovel into the soil, how much you've been involved in this as well. So this has been really a joint effort, and we're really excited to see what's going to come out of this. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your presentation, and go back and tell the kids Bridgewood Public School.
Thank you. They will be very excited. That was all the talk today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item. This is interesting. This will be the second year in the row that we've asked the director to do an annual report that they were not here for. Hopefully this will be the last time. So I'm going to turn this over to our director, Dr. Sliwa, to do the annual director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree that I hope this is the end of a trend and the start of a new one. It's my pleasure to bring this before the board, this report. It's such an impressive work, and it's a report about the individual and collective involvement of everyone in the organization to enable for our students the very best that I believe that public education has to offer. I want to make sure at the front end that I have the authorship attributed to the proper people. It's a pleasure for me to present the report to you, but it really is the sum of the efforts of the senior team under the direction of Ms. Patterson prior to her re-retirement, and that it's my pleasure to speak to it tonight just to highlight some of the key elements in it. This report, I hope that you'll find as you get into the details about it, it's about closing gaps in learning and realizing student potential. And it's also about celebrating the achievement of our students and about celebrating the achievement of our schools and of our staff as well. I want to highlight for trustees how pages 8 to 16 provide detailed examples of staff engaging the board's strategic priorities and how our students have benefited from the wisdom and guidance of the board around those priorities, and through the resources provided by the board was able to deliver on those strategic priorities in very tangible, concrete ways. I also want to highlight to the board that pages 17 and 20, or 17 to 20, is a story about our student data and our efforts to snapshot their achievement in provincial assessments. We're very pleased about the results from the last school year and how our students are moving forward in their success. We know we have more work to do, and this information tells us a bit about the story about our goals and some of the gaps that have emerged as we're pursuing those goals. I hope for you and for our community, it presents clarity for our staff about working on these goals and these gaps diligently every day, how we're monitoring student progress, and where corrective action and support is best suited. And we are very pleased to tell you that our senior staff, our school leaders, and our teachers and support workers realize the value of precision in this work so we can get closer to having all students achieve their potential. And lastly, there are many highlights identified from the last academic year, and I hope that you find that these stories are evidence that matters to our schools, and it's stories and evidence that matters to our students and communities about what it means about being healthy people, staying safe, enjoying and achieving, and also making a contribution to the greater good. We're really trying to make sure that at every possible opportunity that our students have an opportunity to become the very best people they can be, and to be good and smart and curious and resilient so that they can become the adults that we need in our communities. So, Mr. Chair, I'm very pleased to present this to you tonight. I know that the board hasn't had a great amount of time to get into the detail of the report, but when there is an opportunity to do so, should they have any questions, I hope that they'll feel free to direct that back to senior staff for any clarification or further information.
Thank you, Director. Are there any comments or questions at this point? Seeing there are none, thank you. Thank you very much for that, and we will certainly, as we go through it, take your advice, if you have questions, and we will refer them to you, to someone who will answer it for us. All right, thank you. The next item on the list regards a district letter in support of the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit studies. There has been a couple boards in Ontario that have been writing letters to the Ministry of Education dealing with curriculum matters. And when I was looking at those, I had a chat with the director in terms of trying to get clarity. I mean, I'm looking for direction from the board as your chair to what direction you'd like me to take in terms of writing a letter, or if you do want me to write a letter, what the content will be. I think it's important that all of us kind of get into a discussion tonight in terms of exactly what it is that we want to accomplish. It seems to me, as I look at some of these letters, that there doesn't seem to be a specific focus. They seem to be in different areas. And of course, we're very, very fortunate to have Trustee Garrow with us, who is doing admirable work with the government right now. So we have your expertise to draw upon. And I also know that our director has a deep interest in this area as well. So we're really sitting with a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of information that we can obtain tonight, and educate ourselves as well in terms of the nature of the situation and what we can do to either impact this decision or influence what's happening at the government level. So I'd like to just open it up for general discussion at this point. But in doing that, maybe I think it'd be fair if I turn it over to Trustee Garrow, maybe if you don't mind, giving us a bit of some information on what we should be looking at.
Thank you, Chair. There's been I guess a lot of work, primarily from our native trustees for Ontario Public School Board Association. And we've been looking and working with the ministry and looking at the curriculum that is there. I mean, initially what we were trying to do was make it mandatory for all students in secondary to have some course in Native Studies. But talking to the ministry, what we're saying is that maybe in many subject areas we could include various segments of curriculum that is really needed. not just for our First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students, but for all students. And that's where we're coming from, because the curriculum is really, I would say the two textbooks for Native Studies are very well done. They're very well received. And a number of them are students that apply, but it's not a mandatory course. And so if we're able to do that way as far as including our history, our traditions, our way of life, I guess, of looking at education and what has been taken away from us, and I think we need to include it. It's been, as I say, in the last couple of years, there have been some really key moments that have come forward. People have looked at the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. They've looked at the Truth and Reconciliation, the 94 recommendations that come down on residential schools, has made a large impact. We have, Upper Canada has a really close relationship with Akwesasne Mohawk Board of Education. And I also sit on a committee with, on the Cornwall University Committee. And the people around the table that I sit with, mayors from the city of Cornwall, mayors from the counties, various business people, president or the dean of St. Lawrence College, St. Lawrence River Institute, and they have little knowledge of who we are in Akwesasne. And so that concerns us in a way that here we are, as we talked about the bridging, and that there's little, I would say, of what we feel is very important to be included in the education system. And this goes throughout, not just in Ontario, but right across the country. So I've been working with, as they say, with the College of Teachers, with the ministry. They have hired Romaine Mitchell within the ministry now, and he's doing some remarkable work. So I think maybe that's where I'm leading. We need to discuss this further, but really blend, if you want, the relationship we have with Akwesasne Mohawk Board and the community. And I did talk to the new director, Donald Lahash, and Debbie Terrance, the associate director. And director, they would really like to meet with you soon. And I know that they do have a board meeting come up. I think it's the second week of October. It's on a Wednesday night. I mean, January, excuse me, but January. So, but at any time that they would like to do that. But I think if we could just maybe work together and putting something, a letter to it, because I've seen the 2 letters that have been put out from other boards. And I attended a workshop or a conference with the People for Education, which I sent a copy of my PowerPoint that I presented to them, with Elaine Bigwin from the Ministry of Education. And I was trying to get at the real core of how rich our history, our review of education is, and what she, and I don't want to be critical of her, but what she presented was, of course, was self-ID, you know, which really rankled me. I mean, that's all they presented, and I go, wow, it's, you know, they're missing the point. Mm-hmm. And so I think our continued work with the ministry, and of course with the College of Teachers, but also with all our Native trustees, because right now there's 22 of us, and Native trustees within the public school system, English, but there's also 6 within the Catholic School Board, and we have 1 in the French Public School Board. And we all see the same thing, that there has been a void, and that's what we're trying to do. And again, it's for all students. They need to know, why is there a reserve? Why do we have to carry a status card? What happened to the residential schools? What's the Indian Act all about? And so those are really key questions that we have to face with, but these questions are coming from non-Native students. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I feel that we could put a letter together, but I think build on the relationship we have with Akwesasne. And yesterday, meeting with the Prime Minister on Nation to Nation, I mean, it was just an amazing speech. They also had a ceremony yesterday that was really, it was a wonderful ceremony, because they did a blanket ceremony for the chairs or the panel on the residential school, but they also did a ceremony for Cindy Blackstock, who's been the executive director of the Child and Family Caring Society. And it was very, very moving. And the ceremony itself was really important to us, but it was televised. I mean, people could go into it. And from what I hear is that so many people have commented on it. Again, not First Nations people, but they were non-native, saying that was really wonderful how they did that. And they want to know more. So I just leave that up, that there is a lot, I think, to, that hopefully that we can teach. And so it's
Well, thanks. And I want to continue to tap into our resources, so I'm going to go over to our director. And what can you add in terms of what you feel, Trustee Garrow has suggested that we do a joint letter because of our connection with Akwesasne. What can you add in terms of the content of a letter for us to have an impact, and an impact in what area do you consider would be of value?
So my recommendation to the board is that a letter would have a great deal of merit, because in the absence of sending that letter, people will think that the status quo is fine. Right. And I think the message that's coming out through the writing campaigns from different school districts is that different boards of trustees are respectfully requesting a second look at how the provincial school system is providing students with meaningful experiences to better understand the story of Aboriginal peoples. There's been a lot of headway in the last 15 years in terms of where the province was prior to 2000 and where the province finds itself now. And I think, again, respectfully, the letter is really requesting and urging people not to lose that momentum, not to stop at a particular policy practice, but to be broad-minded and to keep growing the work that the province very, I think, courageously initiated some time ago, long before there was a federal support for this type of focus. There's probably 3 places where a letter could land, and this might reflect where at least some of the school boards have been at in their writing. One is about requesting that the ministry gives greater consideration to how the curriculum will prepare students for a relationship of reconciliation that comes out of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And, you know, reconciliation is a very complex practice that asks people to move beyond shame and regret and to move to growth and positive relationships. Another place where the letter could suggest is to be a little bit more clear about, and I heard Trustee Garrow bring that forward, about how does the curriculum itself make that commitment for students to get closer to the stories of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples through the regular curriculum experience. So that's, it would have a very robust presence in English, it would have a robust presence in history, robust presence in math and in science, about different ways of knowing and different truths as part of learning, and learning how those truths and knowledge came to be, and how do we honor that people see that as defining who they are and how they've come to understand the world around them. Lastly, it could be a letter requesting something very maybe more structural, and it could be about asking for greater clarity and commitment through Ontario schools policies that has credits in First Nation, Métis, and Inuit studies, currently known as Native Studies, to be substitutable for other compulsory credits. So currently in the provincial secondary school diploma, there are two credits where that can happen. Grade 9 art, where a student could take expressing Aboriginal cultures, which is a grade 9 arts course that's based on an Aboriginal worldview, and take that course in place of the grade 9 visual arts or the grade 9 music. And then in grade 11, there's an opportunity to substitute the grade 11 English credit with the grade 11 Aboriginal Voices, Aboriginal Writers credit. And the notion of substitution, I think, honors the other curriculum that lands squarely in the topics that Trustee Garrow was talking about, and gives students a chance to get deep into that discussion and that dialogue. An example where the current substitution practice falls short is that prior to 1999, the grade 10 history credit, Canadian history, could be substituted for credit in Aboriginal history. And when the new curriculum came out in 1999 to 2000, that was no longer part of the substitution. And so it's really an assessment of gains and losses. There were more credits offered for students in taking Native Studies in Ontario, and there was more substitutions, went from 1 credit to 2, but the 1 credit that no longer was there, which was really a very pivotal one, was about history and about an Aboriginal worldview of history. So it could be that the letter would respectfully request that the ministry broaden its current curriculum policy that allows greater substitution for the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit credit courses that exist in the curriculum for other credits. And by doing that, then it would allow schools and school boards to promote that as a very viable option for students who in 4 years are trying to accumulate their 30 credits for graduation.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I think there's one other part of the discussion that needs to take place, and that is what OPSPA is doing right now. And that would give us a clear understanding of what OPSPA is doing, and then the advice that we've had so far. So I'm not. You want to start that, and then I'm sure.
I can comment on the OPSPA piece, and,
yep.
and I potentially down the road offer some other comments. And I think I'm only going to potentially summarize what Trustee Garrow might say, because quite honestly, he's more intimately involved with some of this information since he was directly involved with it. But at the last Board of Directors meeting at OPSPA, and it was going to be shared through the OPSPA report, the First Nation Council brought forward recommendations to OPSPA, and the recommendation, it's really a single recommendation, but it involves two components. And the recommendation that was passed by OPSPA was really to support the calls to action within the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I mean, I'm kind of summarizing it right now. But it points to two particular pieces within the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations. It's recommendation 62 and 63, and I had Lisa send this out to the trustees earlier in the week. And 62 talks about call upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments to, in consultation and collaboration with survivors, Aboriginal peoples, and educators, to make age-appropriate curriculum on residential schools, treaties, Aboriginal peoples, historical, and contemporary contributions. So I'm not going to read it all to you, but essentially that's it. It's fine-tuning what potentially is there now, because it doesn't include many of those pieces that Justice Sinclair had put into his recommendations. The second piece was we call upon the Council of Ministries of Education in Canada to maintain an annual commitment to Aboriginal education issues, including developing and implementing kindergarten to grade 12 curriculum and learning resources on Aboriginal people and Canadian history, and the history and legacy of residential schools. So the work of OPSPA, already First Nation, Métis, and Inuit was included in the key works of OPSPA, but this is just a little bit more strategic and more tactical, getting into those recommendations that were passed through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So we've adopted this recommendation, And the work that OPSPA does will be on behalf of all school boards, quite honestly, but more particularly English public school boards, focusing in on those areas that were in the recommendation. So I'll leave it there for trustees, and as OPSPA members, we are benefiting from their work as well. So I don't want to speak necessarily to a letter yet, but I'll just put that out there, and if Trustee Garrett wants to.
No, I think that's, and no, I guess there's 94 recommendations, and the Prime Minister yesterday said that we're going to implement all 94, which is very, wow, that's an onerous task. But however, he did make that statement. He also made that statement before he was elected too, in his platform. So I guess the National Chief, Harry Balgard, summed it up after he spoke. He said, we've got a lot of work to do. And so there's a lot of work on both sides, and coming forward, hearing the speech yesterday, it's quite moved. It's so refreshing. Last week we had our negotiations with our self-government agreement with Akwesasne, with the federal government, and even the federal negotiators from Canada came down, and they seem to be very refreshed too, that things seem to be moving forward, and in partnerships. And that's what I guess our self-government agreement is really establishing a new partnership, a new relationship as First Nations people, especially with Akwesasne Mohawks, with the federal government. And so that whole new relationship, hopefully it's a long-lasting marriage.
It seems to me to go back to what the director was saying.
Exactly.
There's momentum right now.
It is major.
Trustee McAllister.
Thank you, Chair. I can't add much to what the director and Trustee Garrow have said, but in reference to the letter specifically, I strongly suggest that there are several areas of focus, and one of them could be the issue of raising awareness and learning opportunities for our students. And given the renewed thrust of the federal government in this particular area of First Nations, I think it's more timely than ever before. The question, I guess, I think we should examine is whether or not it should be a standalone course or an integrated course into the curriculum. And based on my experience as a former teacher, retired teacher, I would strongly suggest that the integrated model would certainly give us more bang for the buck in terms of our goals of raising awareness and providing learning opportunities. Because as we all know, the course curriculum, especially at the secondary level, is very compressed already. And if it's offered as a standalone course, then it just means that those few students who take the course will benefit, as opposed to having exposure to all students. So the other thing that I think we should point out is that there's a need for a very powerful and relevant curriculum, and more importantly, the delivery of that curriculum. And it's one that should be focused on more than just our historical perspectives, but one which exposes students to culture, arts, etc., in the past, present, and future. This is a living curriculum, and that is one of my thoughts on the issue anyway.
Thank you, Trustee McAllister. Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. I think when we look at this, it's a letter in support of First Nation Métis and Inuit. I'm not sure it achieves what we want to potentially achieve by saying we support it. So listen to the director. There's 3 areas potentially that we can go into, and I've used it in the past. I think we're attempting to boil the ocean tonight without having a lot of information in front of us. And I think there's an opportunity for us to pause, reflect, and let's come back at it with a more strategic and tactical approach as to what we would like to see from our board, and allow those changes to occur. And I think there's a lot of things that are playing out. I mean, there's several pieces that are happening at a federal level and a provincial level as we speak. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that we are not, on an island onto ourselves, and at least supporting what's being done currently and identifying gaps that there are. And I think if we can speak specifically to the gaps that we have in our board And I think that's an important piece for us to do when we pause and reflect, is we have that specific evidence to say, here's how it affects our students, here's how it affects our board. Potentially it may not be impacting it as much today, but in the future as well. So I think if we have that opportunity to get some more information back from the director and staff to be able to say, here are the areas, we've identified 3, here are the areas I think that we need to focus on and be very tactical when we do send support or criticism, quite honestly could be, of what's being done out there. So I think, you know, as I said earlier, OPSPA is doing some work and we are going to benefit from that work, but sending a letter, we need to make sure that we are hoping to achieve something rather than just saying we support it and it being filed. So I think it's probably of great benefit for us to be able to come back and have more information in front of us as we move forward. So I would allow others, but I would certainly ask for a motion to be able to allow the director to do some of that work and come back with further information.
Before I get to Trustee Cartner, and I'm not sure who can answer this, is there an urgency to these letters?
No.
Because that would fit perfectly into what you're talking about. So there's no urgency that you see at this point?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a time. There's a big change that has come about federally, even provincially, in the sense that we have a new government even there that's been struggling for the last year.
So we have the flexibility to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Plus we have the director. But maybe before, I just wanted to, Susan, I attended that session you had at Kempville, and we had Dr. Toulouse came in and gave a presentation, so I just want maybe even expanding that, what was their reaction to her, and that I just wanted to maybe touch base, because again, that's another element that's coming forward too, and which I was really surprised, and I appreciate it.
Yes. I'll get to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Trustee Garrow, and through you, Chair. Yes, we did have Dr. Pamela Toulouse come and speak to 2 secondary teachers. And we also invited the principals. So we had about 60 people coming to listen to Dr. Toulouse. And as Trustee Garrow was saying, helping teachers understand the Indian Act, helping teachers understand cultural pieces, and just bringing in the cultural impact and understanding and raising their awareness, raising their understanding, so that when they work with the students in their classes, they have some Indigenous perspectives, and it was very much about raising their own awareness, so they can help to raise the awareness for students, helps to bring the resources within, and help to bring their eye to parts of the curriculum that are there about how to bring cultural perspectives into their classrooms. However, they haven't had their ears or eyes attuned to that, if you like. And so it was an excellent day, and the feedback was extremely positive. And then just tagging on to that, last week we also had 2 days of our Native student leadership, where we had 80 students on one day and 90 students on the other day come. And you know, we're standing on the shoulders of some pretty big people here, and Trustee Garrow mentioned Romaine Mitchell. And our Native Student Leadership Program has been a program that has been in place and for about 5 or 6 years within our board, if not even longer. And we're seeing some tremendous growth this week. And I was tracking up with the last one. I was talking to the director. And what was coming out of that this time of building awareness was our teachers were really involved with our students, and our teachers and students would like to be hosting the leaders there, and the leaders would like to be hosting it within schools, and actually have asked if we might be able to host one of the next leadership sessions here at the board office. So we are doing some good things. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think raising the cultural awareness of not just our First Nation and Métis and Inuit students, but of all students, as Trustee Garrow says, is paramount. And it's a historical and exciting time for us to come to that. And it was we were talking. It's a tremendous opportunity, and you just raised to saying what is our call to action from the Truth and Reconciliation. This is about all of us making better stories together as we go forward.
Thank you. Trustee Kartner. Sorry.
My concern is not only what has been brought forth by OBSPA and some of the other items that we've heard about tonight, but I'm really concerned about the teacher education part of it. A lot of our teachers are not Aboriginal, and I think that is where we need to encourage our teachers across Ontario who are self-identified Aboriginal people to get into the teaching profession. I had the occasion today to speak to the work group leader chair, Marilyse Redding, for the ministry. They're investigating the teacher education program, especially the 2-year program. But she was telling me that students are not going into topics like Native Studies, French, special education. And those are the key areas that we're looking for nowadays, and it's unfortunate the students aren't going. So they're looking at that aspect of it as to why. But I strongly suggest that we include that part in our letters as well, or our letter. But I like the communication between Akwesasne and our board as well. A valuable resource we have right with us, so we need to use it.
This conversation has accomplished exactly what I wanted, to show the complexity of this, the depth of it, and that it's not as straightforward as saying, Chair, write a letter. There's a lot more involved. So what I'm looking for right now is direction from the board, and it may come in the form of a motion to ask the director to do something for us. But I'm looking, as the chair, I'm looking for direction into our next steps. It's been made clear that it's not an urgency, is not a matter that we have to consider right now. It's a matter of doing it right. So can someone provide me with some direction in terms of what we'd like to see?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to put a motion forward, or if the director feels he's been able to capture the essence of our communication. I think it's important for us to make sure that we address the right things and getting, as opposed to being very generic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the opportunity for us to be able to go out and collect some of that information and make sure that we're addressing that and having some of the evidence pieces that we require to put forward. I think there's more value in it when we have some of that evidence rather than us just saying, we're in support and we're joining in the line. So I think it's valuable for us. We've got a lot of skilled resources at our fingertips. So.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm going to do is ask the director first. Do you feel a motion would be necessary, or do you have enough information from the discussion as to what really our intent is and what we would like to happen next?
Well, Mr. Chair, I say that people have been very clear about their thinking and their aspirations for the content of the letter. I think you've given myself and staff a lot of details that we can draw upon. Maybe as a closing comment, a walk away impression I have is that we really want to convey that this focus is for and about Aboriginal peoples. So it has to have a very broad landing spot in terms of what I heard Vice Chair McDonald say about a letter that says that we need to achieve something versus merely supporting a concept. And what I'll do is I'll work to develop a first product of that nature, provide it for circulation to you, Mr. Chair, and then for your review and comment. And if it's your view that maybe we need to have a follow-up after the letter to indicate what was some of the thinking and some of the direction from a program or a staff development perspective that the letter sort of shone a bright light on, then I could bring that back to the board.
So you're satisfied? You have enough without us going through a motion?
I do indeed.
Trustee Gardner.
I'm just going to suggest that perhaps a timeline would be called for, because I know that the invitation has been brought forward to have a meeting with the Akwesasne folks as well. And maybe a time is needed for our director to meet with them before that letter comes back to us. And I'm thinking perhaps maybe mid-February we get the letter after January having time to meet with the new director and vice director. Just a thought. I can put a motion forward
Yeah, I
requesting.
think once we start putting timelines and we're starting moving to motion, and I have no problem with that. But if a motion is not necessary, you're clear that we would like you coming back to us, or at least to have most of this in place by mid-February.
Yes, that's correct. I've heard three things. An invitation for us to continue our partnership with Akwesasne and with the Board of Education there to have a reconnection with a change in leadership, and I can assure you that I'd be very committed to that. To draft a letter for the chair's review that is more robust than a simple letter of support, that reflects our intent, and through that intent where we can follow up as a district in terms of how we teach and how we train our staff to become more capable of delivering a focus on worldviews that are beyond one worldview. And then lastly, to come back to the board after that letter has been written with some of the details as an update about how did that meeting go, and how did the letter inform some of the things that we're prepared to address and invest in our own district as part of our commitment to this.
Trustees. Need a motion, are we fine with that?
Get her done.
Pardon me?
Get her done.
Done. Thank you. And I thank everyone for the discussion. It was exactly what I wanted. It was very deep, very rich, and I think it shows the wealth of research or people that we have here in terms of information. So we're not going to do a motion. So at the next, I'm going to turn this over to Trustee McDonald, who's going to give us a report from OPSLA.
Thank you. I will again be brief, hopefully for you, Mr. Chair. It's a 2-day meeting, so I'll try and summarize it in about 7.5 minutes. On Friday night, there was a timed item, a presentation from, and I think I alluded to this in a previous report, is the Office of the Provincial Advocate. It's an office that I had not heard of previously. And really what the Office of the Provincial Advocate is to do is to advocate on behalf of children that are obviously in vulnerable state, cannot advocate on behalf of themselves. It's not mentally challenged individuals. It's youth that are in CAS situations and custody situations, those types of things. And it's really not to provide a recommendation or a particular area that something should be done. That's just trying to bring a voice to those individual youths. The gentleman is Erwin Ellman, and it was a fabulous presentation. The individual, it's not your typical presentation, very very professional and posh. This is someone who's very down to earth and quite honestly admitted that he doesn't care for PowerPoints, but he did it because it was required. He spoke to the issues, he spoke to what was required, and what resonated really was that you can't legislate care, you can't legislate love. And really that's what he is working on. It's about establishing that opportunity to make sure that someone cares, and establishing that opportunity that there is that caring, loving piece that's required for those kids, those youth that are in those situations. He used an example of a young girl who was in a custody situation, small custody situation, you know, probably maybe a dozen kids in the custody situation. And the situation was that the home wasn't allowing the youth to have salad dressing. And so they continually asked for the salad dressing and asked for the salad dressing. They weren't getting the salad dressing. And this youth, and because there's posters in everywhere to identify and make sure that the youth are aware of their rights, this youth picked up the phone and called the office. And it was a Friday night, I think it was, or whatever the case may be, and spoke to Mr. Ellman, and he said, you know, salad dressing, like, it's not that important. That was his first thought. And then she became upset, and he says, well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be flippant, so let me speak to this person. What started out as salad dressing could have become a situation where those students, those youth, rebelled, and had further implications because of their rebellion on not having salad dressing, and having just more complications to their life than needed to be. And so, you know, he spoke about salad dressing's important. And when you come back to that, you don't know how big an issue can be when it starts out over what we appear to think is a small issue. And if you don't address some of those issues, it just makes even more complications for those youth. So, you know, his other startling fact was he was not aware and does not receive information about youth who actually die in custody. So there's been changes now that the office is being informed and being made aware of any of those situations where youth that are in custody or in protective custody situations are being pushed forward to Irwin Elman's Office of the Provincial Advocate's office. He talked about the first day that he started, and I can't think of the young person's name, how they were a part of the CAS system and had been abused and neglected and died, and no one really knew and no one did anything. And so, you know, that was his first day in the job, and he had to respond to the media about why wasn't anything done prior to, and why wasn't his office involved. So it was heartwarming to be able to see the compassion in the room of all other trustees. We sometimes can be classified as very cold and callous, me anyway, but it was an opportunity for us to hear what it's like and the realities of what this office has to go through on a regular basis. So there's, you know, they don't advocate for just any youth. It's just very specific. So they have a specific use within the province, but that mandate may expand. Continuing on throughout the meeting over the course of the weekend, there was more information on the update on copyright. Copyright's a big thing for school boards. It doesn't appear to be sometimes, because we just go and throw things onto the photocopier and print stuff off, whatever the case might be. Well, there is requirements around copyright. We have to be very careful on what we do. There are specific requirements about posting what you should or shouldn't be able to copy and print within a school. There are some components within the agreement that allow for education community to have fair dealing amendments, or fair dealing trade, I guess is a better term. So in order to be able to provide education, we have the opportunity to be able to print and photocopy certain types of things. There's a current case that's undergoing with a university, and that may have an impact depending on how that moves forward. But certainly that is brought up to the OPSPA on a regular basis. We have a member who used to work for OPSPA that just basically looks after that portfolio on behalf of the Canadian School Board Association and brings that information back to us. The other work that they do is trying to make sure that tariff that is associated to what's required for all boards to pay is at a very minimum. Whenever we have to do that, we've, you know, over the course of the past few years, we had a potential of seeing those tariffs almost double, which would have cost I don't know, potentially greater than $50-some thousand for the board to be able to deal with. Finance, we also got a report from Mr. McNally on finance. The province released the 2015 capital priorities. Across the province, there were a number of schools that were mentioned. Unfortunately, Upper Canada didn't get any of those. We also talked about the feedback that we're providing in the conversations we've had on Ontario Regulation 44498. That's the disposition on surplus property, where they want to extend the surplus property requirement. So it could take upwards of 180 days as opposed to 90 days. And I think that the feeling was the same across all boards, because you know, we see the requirements around the community hub pieces and the work that they're trying to do to utilize those connections and communities, but there is kind of a situation that you're delaying sometimes the inevitable, and by putting something out there for an extended period, it really doesn't help the matter. Obviously, we received some legislative updates, Municipal Elections Act review, municipal legislation review, other bills that are kind of working their way through the legislature, Bill 113, the Police Records Check Reform Act, Bill 115, electoral, not electrical, Boundaries Act, Bill 139, the Smoke-Free Schools Act. This is kind of dealing with more than just cigarettes. It's the e-cigarettes. It's the pieces associated to not counterfeit, illegal cigarettes, I guess is another way to say it, or a better way to say it. And of course, Bill 149, the Romans Law Advisory Committee Act. So it's an act to review the concussion pieces within the province. Community Hubs Strategic Framework and Action Plan. We have a very prominent voice within that work that's being done across the province. The Framework and Action Plan is meeting on a regular basis. Most notably, AMO is involved within that process, but we have some representation with our first Vice President, Laurie French, attending those meetings and acting on our behalf and certainly advocating on our behalf. AODA update, so Accessibility Ontarians Disability Act, with Disabilities Act, sorry. The board compliance reporting, so within this month the boards have to report on their compliance to all of the pieces that are associated to the act around the pieces that have been laid out so far in regulation. I spoke earlier about the First Nation Council update. I won't go over that again, but essentially we passed that motion. Again, we heard reports from the Policy Development Work Team and the Education Program Work Team. Child and youth mental health, we keep talking about that. We want to make sure that goes through to our communities and to our trustees. The summit in April 2016, a public education symposium in January 28th to the 16th. There'll be some good sessions there. And I think that is it, Mr. Chair. 8 minutes.
I'm sorry.
That would have been the time right there.
That was really apropos. There it goes again.
I can tell we're getting near the end of this meeting. Are there any comments or questions?
I had a education work team meeting in Toronto beginning of the week, and we will be putting out a summary of our meeting. Most of it was from a presentation by EQAO. Some interesting information came out of that from the head of the EQAO and what they're trying to accomplish in the next years.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you for those reports. This brings us to the director's remarks. Director.
I want to make sure I shared with the board that as part of my entry plan, that I've had the opportunity to meet with a number of the executives of our labor groups, and that's been a very important stop along my way to get to know people and what their aspirations are for our employees and their members. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to follow a number of our superintendents to schools in their family of schools areas, and I'd like to thank Superintendent Edwards and Mills and Coombs, who have so far hosted those tours, and I think in the next week or so I'll be out in the eastern part of the district, and looking forward to being out in Vice Chair Karkner's territory, so it'll be very informative, I'm sure, and I'm looking forward to Superintendent Allen helping me to better understand that part of the district and how our schools are doing good things for students. I want to also indicate that we're spending a great deal of time thinking about what would be the next level of work that the Board of Trustees would like staff to bring forward ideas and recommendations as we really start thinking about not just this year, but really about the 2016-2017 year. And we'll look forward through the next couple of months of bringing some of those ideas forward through the different opportunities that the board provides. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, my closing remarks, I guess it's been 3 weeks, Director Schlieba?
3 weeks.
It's been 3 weeks? Okay, the honeymoon's over. Just thought I'd pass that on, just so you knew. Certainly, we're very pleased and very proud to have you, and we hope that they've been a good 3 weeks. A lot of work you've done, and I thank you for everything that you're doing so far. This is the last board meeting we have before Christmas, which is kind of hard to believe. I mean, I can't get it in my head that Christmas is that close. So what I do want to say is, first and foremost, I want to thank the Board of Trustees for the past year. It's been a year now, a little over a year that we have been aboard. It's been a year of challenge. It's been a year of a lot of work, and it's been a year of a lot of teamwork for this board. And in my role as chair, I could not have done it without your support. And I thank you for that and the confidence that you've had. We've done this together. We've been through a lot of challenges over the last year, and we've been stronger with each challenge that we have to face. So I look forward to the next year that we have before us. I also want to thank the senior team, as I have many times in the past. You've been with us through this last year journey. It's been interesting. It's been a challenge. I know there are principals that tune in, and on behalf of the board, we know how hard you've worked, and we certainly appreciate that as well. Not to mention our staff, who every day work with our most valuable product, and that's our kids. So it's been a year for us. I want to thank everyone. For some of the trustees, I don't see you, or we don't see you until 2016. Can you believe that? 2016. I wish you a Merry Christmas, a happy holiday to you and your families, and a safe holiday, because I want to see each and every one of you back here in January.
Chair McMillan, just before you ask for adjournment, I'm assuming that's coming quickly.
Well, it was until you put your hand up.
Without putting somebody on the spot, there is one person around the table that I would like to hear make some comments, and that's maybe our student trustee, because I really have not heard a lot of reports from him in this particular quarter, and I was wondering, without putting you on the spot, Alex and Trustee Chair, I'd beg your indulgence to at least let him plug the Student Senate coming on Friday.
Actually, thank you very much, Trustee Cram, for that. So I'd just like to let everybody know that this coming Friday, 2 days from now, December 11th, we're having the Upper Canada District School Board's second Student Senate meeting. So all of our student senators will hopefully be in attendance. That'll be held at Roebuck Hall in Spencerville. If anybody would like, if any of you would like to attend, we'd be more than happy to have you. If you need to find out about addresses, like the address or anything, just contact Lisa or myself, and I'd be happy to provide you with that. Thanks.
Thank you. I would have been disappointed, Trustee Cram, had you not said something this meeting. What's interesting about Student Senate, and Trustee McIsaac and I were talking about this, is the next Senate meeting after this one is when the next student trustee is elected. And it's very, it doesn't seem like you've held the position, even though you did a year prior to this, coming to our board. It doesn't seem that it's been that long. So that's coming up very soon. So I mean, obviously in this board meeting, or this Student Senate meeting that's coming up next, there's going to be some chatter about who's going to put their names forward. So it's an interesting time for you right now, and I thank you for that. So, that being said, I need a motion that the regular meeting in the public session of the Upper Canada District School Board, December 9th, 2015, be adjourned at 8:14, 15 seconds. Moved by Trustee Richards, Trustee Cram. Show of hands. Thank you, everyone. Safe travels home.
Thank you.